to the Palmetto Politics Show. I am your host, Shannon Grady, and this is my co-host,
John Cummings, good morning.
John. We missed you last Tuesday. I know that you had something very special to take care of, and I hope that
Well,
she was celebrated. And
yeah, oh yeah, it was we had a good day. We had a good day. We
so
spent
she had
Christine's birthday
30th birthday
Thursday.
went great.
Oh yeah, yeah. This was the 29th anniversary of her 30th birthday. Yeah.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
guess what we
Really
did? We went to the aquarium, the
awesome,
Ripley's
awesome.
Aquarium, which was I'm telling you, if you haven't been, if you like that sort of thing, it's a lot of fun. And my wife loves that stuff. So
Yeah. Well, John, we have a lot to talk about. I know you and I were just talking before the show. Folks, if you have any questions about why it is that South Carolina is a supermajority of Republicans, and yet we are the most liberal state in the union, that question is about to be answered for you because I'm going to share with you the first scores have come out for this previous session from the Freedom Index. Now, the Freedom Index actually takes a look at how our legislators vote and then aligns it with the Constitution. Obviously, if their vote aligns with the Constitution, they get a good grade. If it doesn't, they lose points for each vote that violates or goes against the Constitution. John and I are both teachers. So, John, when someone gets a perfect score, what is that score?
yeah, it's usually 100, which is
It's usually
that's a
100.
lofty goal. Yeah.
It is a lofty goal. And I will tell you right now that we had two of our state legislatures, state representatives, who did score perfect scores. One of those was Dr. Representative Rob Harris, and the other was Jordan Pace. They both got 100, so they scored perfectly. But let's take a look. We're just going to kind of go through these, and folks, if you have questions about how your state representative did or how they didn't do, this will be an opportunity for you to take a look at all. We're going to look at everybody. This is all of your state representatives as well as your state senators. So it's not just, state house or just the Senate. It's both of those groups combined. So let's take a look at that now. As I noted, this is their scorecard. So at the very top there, you see the South Carolina General Assembly. So this is going to be both the House and the Senate. And at the very top, you're going to see the first guy, Brian Adams, Republican, scored a 33. I think we would agree that's an F.
Yeah, that's not
Republican
good.
Thomas Alexander, yeah, 25. Now we've got some Democrats here: Alexander, Allen, Anderson, Atkins. They all are Democrats. So I hate to say this, but it's almost expected that the Democrats are not going to do well. But I want to call your attention to something. So Alexander's got a 13. Carl Allen has an 8. Carl Anderson has a 17. Hold that number in your head, if you will, John.
Right.
That's 17. That's
Yeah.
Carl Anderson. That's a Democrat. 17. Lucas Atkinson. Hold that number in your head. That's a 30. He has a 30. He's a Democrat, folks. These are open Democrats. Now, William Bailey, that is the first of our delegation members to appear in the list alphabetically, no particular reason. And he has a 50. I'm going to go ahead and let you know, folks, that is the highest score that anyone in our delegation received, a 50.
From
Now, John,
Horry,
again,
right? Yeah.
did you have a different grade scale than I did? Because where I was at, a 50 was an
Yeah.
F. So,
Yeah, it certainly is. And I'll give some people a little leeway. If you're up in the 80s, I'm sure there are times when you have to vote on a bill and there's been riders attached where that might skew your voting record a bit. A bit. So
right.
my thing is, if you're 80 and up, you're in a good spot. You're in a
Yeah.
good spot. There are some times when there's going to be a bill that say, okay, I have to vote
Yes.
for this, even though you stuck this on the end of it and I don't like it. I think this is more important. And that's a decision you have to make as a legislator. But to me, anything under 80 is really not representative, especially of the people in Horry County.
Well, it's not conservative.
Right.
And that's going to lead us to the next thing I'm going to point out because he's probably going to be a little bit mad at me. But I do think you need to be 80 or above if you're a solid conservative. Now, I would love to see somebody in our district, in our delegation, score in the 70s. I'd accept the 75. I think I'd
Yeah.
be pretty happy with that. Which brings us to one of our first Freedom Caucus members who appears in this is Mr. Thomas Beach, and he's at 75. So,
Right.
Thomas, you got to do a little work there. We got
Which
to get you
we'd
up a little
gladly
bit.
take that, though, here. Yeah.
But we'll
We'd
take that
gladly
seven. Oh
take
my
it.
God. 1,000, a million times over, I'll take that 75. So and he's new. I think this is his first first time receiving a score. So 75 is, certainly a great place to start. If this is going to be your first vote, you can only
No
go up
doubt.
from there. I'm happy with the 75. Now, remember that 17 and that 30, because that was two of the Democrats had a 17 and a 30. So our next county delegation member on the list is Mr. Case Britton. And he's got an 18, folks. He's got an 18. So there's a Democrat, an actual Democrat, member of the Democratic Party, openly Democratic. He's got a 30, which is higher than our Case Britton's 18. That's a problem, folks. That is a problem.
Especially if you
And
like
then
the Constitution, yeah.
right. Then we go to Mike Burns. Congratulations, Mike Burns. There we go. 83. That's what we want to see. I mean, look at this. Bradley, 25. Brewer, 20. Bustos, 33. Calhoun, 44. These are Republicans, folks. Chip, 27. 33. Richard Cash, 50. Those are all failing grades. If I was reading this out as here's your exam score, this is what you did on the final exam, as a teacher, I would start questioning whether or not I did a sufficient job of educating my students, because by and large, they're failing. So far in the Republican Party, we've had two people pass, one with a 75, one with an 83. So now we're moving down. We have another pass. So this is our third pass. Hey, John, do you have a way to kind of keep score? I haven't done this, so can you kind of just keep score of how many people pass in
Oh
the
boy,
Republican Party for
I
me?
think I've only seen 3 so far.
It's three so far. I don't know if you got something you can write that down. So I just want to
Yeah,
track that. So we got
yeah.
three, 82. That's a fail. West Clymer, that's from my old county, York County. I'm very disappointed in West. Can't believe that. Here we go. William Bill Clyburn, 17, ladies and gentlemen. 17, Democrat. 7, I want to point that out. Democrat, 17. Okay, that's important. Keep that number in your head. And he's a Democrat.
There's
All right.
plenty of
Bill
Democrats
Collins,
17 to 30, yeah.
36, Benjamin Connell, 20, Thomas Corbin almost got there, 67, still a failure. Heather Ammons, there's another one of our delegation members, folks. What she got? A 40. That's an F. Okay. All right. Finally, we're getting to another Freedom Caucus member, April Cromer, 83. Yay, conservative. That would be 4 passing
Yep,
grades
that's
for the
4.
Republican Party. No hope for the Democrats to pass. 25, 18. Another Democrat at 17. Mike Fanning. Let's see, we get anywhere? Nope. Still all
Nope.
failure so far. Look at this. Gil Gatch. This is despicable. He is a Republican by name only. 0, John. Scored a 0, which
Yeah,
means every Democrat scored better than he did.
yeah, you almost hope that that's a typo, right?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I mean,
If you
good
knew it,
Lord.
you would know it wasn't.
Yeah,
That's a 0. And that's about what the number of votes he should get when he runs for re-election. Goldfinch, another one of our guys in delegation. He's a state senator, 44. He's the second highest score in Horry County. So you got William Bailey at 50, Stephen Goldfinch at 44, then Heather Crawford is at 40. So again, I think we're at 4
right.
so far. Still
Got
4
4. That's it,
Republicans have
4.
passed. Okay, here we come to another one. Praise the Lord. Henry Gustafson. This is somebody I'm so disappointed. I was sat with her, anyway, 25, just despicable. Penry,
Yep.
I am so utterly disappointed in you. Patrick Hayden, now 73. So we have now, with a D, but we'll count it. That's 5
you
passing grades on the Republican
you
side.
missed Val Guest.
Oh, did I miss him? Where's he at?
There he
My
is, right
God,
there.
it's 17. See, I told you to remember that number 17, John. Remember, we had how many?
17.
Like 4 or 5 other Democrats who also had a 17.
Yeah.
So here's a Republican with a 17. Bill Hager, he's got a 17. So something tells me that there's another 17 from the Democrat. Rob Harris, ladies and gentlemen, somebody who gets it. 100. Congratulations, Rob Harris. He's a doctor. Phenomenal job. Member of the Freedom Caucus. Absolutely ecstatic to have him as one of our state legislators. He's getting the job done. 100. So that brings us to 6, right? Six passing grades.
6. Yep.
So far, and that's among all of them. Democrats are. Here we go. Greg Hembry, another one of our guys, 17. Again, tied with the Democrats at 17. More failing grades. Davey Hoyt, this is what's important. He's actually one of the leaders in the Republican Party, 42. How pathetic is that? There's another Democrat with a 17. Here we go. Got a Democrat with a 0. Now we got Gil Gatz, who's a Republican. He's tied with Leon Howard, the Democrat, with a score of 0. That's fabulous. That is some good stuff. Good stuff. Here's another one of our guys, Mr. Jeff Johnson at 30. That's again a failure. All right, good news. Stuart Jones, a Freedom Caucus guy, a 90. So I believe that's six passing grades. There's Jay Kilmartin, another Freedom Caucus guy, 83. That's seven passing grades. Oh my goodness. Look at these 17s. It's hard to tell who's a Democrat, who's Republican.
Yep, all in
Aside
17.
from the fact they have an R. Yeah, they all have, it's just pathetic. And then we've got these 20s, 33, 45. Oh, another passing grade, 75.
That's 8.
So that brings us to
That's 8.
That's 8. All right. Josiah Magnuson, another outstanding conservative.
Yeah.
There we go. So we'll take that. That's 9.
Yep.
Shane Martin, 56. Shane Massey, 33. RJ May, another Freedom Caucus person, 83. That's a passing grade, and it's certainly conservative. Yeah. So that brings us to 9, correct?
Yeah.
And then here we go with McCabe Jr. in the House, 100. Oh, you know what? I missed
10.
him. I thought we only had 2. That's 10.
10.
So we had 3 people that scored 100. So great job there. Let's see if we get it. Oh, here we go. Adam Morgan and Alan Morgan. They're brothers, Freedom Caucus members, both 83 and 83. So that's 12.
12, right?
12. 38, 33, 25, 33, 55. Are we missing any of our people? Nope, 50. Jordan Pace, another one of our Freedom Caucus members, and it's 100. That's a passing grade.
That's 11.
I'm sorry, Melissa. Melissa was in the Freedom Caucus. Now, I don't know that she's in. I think she left the Freedom Caucus. 67 is still a failing grade. I'm sorry. If it's below 70, it's a failing grade. So
we're at 11. We're at 11.
Okay. 43. 36. There's Luke Rankin, 18. Wow, he's just smashing it, hitting it out of the park. Tommy Pope, another guy from York, also in some of the leadership circles in the Republican Party, a dismal 25. Very disappointed. We got Rutherford in there, Democrat at 20. Ronnie Sabb, Democrat, for 17 and 18. Again, another Democratic 17. So those are important numbers to keep in mind, because just below there we see Carla Schusler, our brand new District 61 representative, coming in with a blazing score of 17, ladies and gentlemen, tied with many Democrats.
She and Val Guest, who are the new representatives here representing parts of Horry County, scored lower than Todd Rutherford.
Yeah, that's there you go.
That's a tell right there.
Scored lower than Ronnie Sabb, a Democrat.
Yeah.
Lower than John Scott, Democrat. So that's a huge tell. Then we have I don't know that we have. I think we have maybe one more passing grade, if I remember correctly. So we're at 11, right?
You're at 11, yeah.
Okay, we got 12. I thought so. Ashley, another caucus member.
Right,
So I thought
that's
we had
12.
At least one more.
That's Trantham, right?
Yep. And then Joe White, another Freedom Caucus member, 13.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it, folks.
That's it.
That is it for our passing grades. And now it's worth noting that we have 17 members of the Freedom Caucus, and we had how many passing grades?
13.
13. So we got work to do. We have work to do. And that is why our state legislature is in such disrepair, because we have individuals who claim that they are Republican, but their vote is anything but Republican. It is, I mean, it's, again, I mean,
even if you curved it, right? Even if you curved it somehow, these people aren't even close. You know what I mean? It's not like you're hovering around 60, 65. These are people that are in the teens, below a lot of the Democrats. And that's why the supermajority really doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, the minority leader, which is the leader of the Democrat Party, Todd Rutherford, has a higher score at 20 than several members of our Horry delegation and several members of the Republican Party in general. Folks, that is pathetic. That's oh my God, that's
it's unacceptable. And of course, the big problem is it's very difficult to get incumbents out of office because they have name recognition already. But that's something that needs to be done. These people need to be challenged when it comes primary time, which is right around the corner.
I want to show you something because it's great to see the score, but then we're going to pull it up and actually take a look at their votes. Let me see if I can get back to Carla so I can pull hers up. Here we go. You just can go to this page, look up Freedom Caucus Index, the freedomindex.org, look this up, and then you click on them, and then it's going to tell you exactly how they voted. So she's got a 17% cumulative vote. You can actually go and look at what she voted on. You can go here and it says print the scorecard. So you can actually print it out. You still seeing this, John?
Yep.
Okay. So here you go. The star means she did it right. So if you wherever you see a green star, it's a good vote. Wherever you see a red X, it's a bad vote. So
Right. So that I'm
can you
not
see that
seeing, but
first green star? Okay.
I saw
You
you
see
print
the
the
green star now?
scorecard, but yeah, but still, I mean, it's such a great device if you really want to look up people's voting records. I mean, this is what accountability is all about. And it's unfortunate that people don't take the time to do this and they just go out and vote on name recognition or,
All
who
right. Let
put
me
up
see
the
if we
most
can.
signs or who handed out the most shopping bags or whatever it is. It's one of those things that really boggles your mind that, this is a red county and our
All right.
representation isn't even purple.
I'm gonna see if I can pull it up. I think I can get it here.
But it really shows you. I
And
mean, people just need to be more aware, and we all know that the media, when it comes to this sort of thing, is useless. They're not going to report any of this
all right, here we
because
go.
it's controlled. So
All right, let me get back to you,
no matter
and
what
I
they
believe I'll
tell
be able
you,
to show it to you now. All right, here we
there
go.
you go. Right.
There you go. So you can see now you can take a look specifically at the scorecard that she got and just kind of see, how she voted. So the first one, constitutional carry, she voted yes. Thank you. Then on the Educational Scholarship Trust Fund, where they're actually going to give money, take money from the people and give it to just very specific kids. That she wrong. She voted wrong. She voted yes, which is wrong. Then she voted for the infrastructure, which allocates funds received by South Carolina to corporate welfare projects, specifically earmarking 1.2 billion for the construction of course, we've talked about this, Volkswagen and Scout. That was a huge mistake. So that's crony capitalism. John and we
Yep.
talked about that at home many, many times. The hate crime bill, all crimes, murders, assaults are crimes, and in my opinion, they're all hateful. I don't go out and say, you know what, I love you. Here, let me shoot you. It's
I
crazy.
we went
Um,
through all of that when they went through with the hate crimes legislation.
yes,
Most of them are unconstitutional, but
yes.
nobody's willing to challenge it because it makes you look like you're a hater. But if you commit a crime and in the commission of a crime, you call somebody a name, they can tack an extra 5 years onto it, which I think is, first of all, it's a waste of time and it slows down the process and it opens it up for appeals. And we went through all of this when that legislation was passed and just not again, it's legislation that is designed to allow legislators to pat themselves on the back and say, look, I'm against hateful people. Well, we're all against hateful people.
Right, right. I think everybody is, yeah. So again, folks, you can click on each one of the state legislatures, whether they be a representative, whether they be a senator, and you can get the scorecard and actually see specifically what they voted on that caused their score to either be as high or as low as it was. But what was the total number we had? What was it?
Yeah.
14 people
Out of,
passed.
out of yeah,
That's out of the state Senate and the state House. 14 of our legislatures passed. That's it.
yeah,
That is
unacceptable.
unbelievably, it's unacceptable. And so there's no wonder that we have the problems that we do in our state because we have legislators who don't understand the Constitution, maybe perhaps have never read it, or haven't read it since they were in grade school or, not grade school. I'm trying to think what was the first grade I actually looked at the Constitution, maybe in fifth grade, perhaps. I'm trying to think. Fifth grade might have been the first time I really looked at it because it's not easy language for an elementary kid to look at. So I think fifth or sixth grade was probably the first time, and maybe that was the last time they looked at it.
Yeah.
Maybe in high school they skipped that in government. I don't know.
It's almost like they don't pay
But it's a
attention to
problem.
it, that they're just told how to vote. They vote as a group. It all comes from the top. And this is the direction we're going in. And it's unacceptable. And when you look at the stuff that they voted for, it's all more big government stuff. It's not small
Yep.
government. It's big government and bigger government. And like you said, crony capitalism and picking and choosing winners and losers when it comes to our tax money. And like I said, that's unacceptable and it's unconstitutional.
Yeah, I'm going to try to pull up one more thing because I kind of want to show you what's going on in our state. We just talked about the fact that our representatives are, who knows, they're in uncharted territory, water that I wouldn't want to be in. And we need change. So folks, if you have considered running for office, and you think, I couldn't make a difference, you've just seen the scores. You've just seen the scores. Unless you're in a district with one of those 14 members that passed, we need you. We need you. I know here in Horry County, there are several people that I understand are primary and various candidates. So that's a great thing. I'm happy to see that. I think Luke Rankin is drawing the largest ear, if you will, of people because of, he's been there for so long, and it's just time for him to go. I think it's past time for him to go, but he needs to go. But one of the other issues, and I wish I need to get David on here. David Warner, he actually heads up Moms for Liberty here in Horry County, and the Moms for Liberty has been doing a really fabulous job of highlighting some of the issues that we have in our schools. Now, you can make the argument that the most significant issue is not books that are available to our kids, because quite frankly, and John, you maybe can support me on this. I'm just going to tell you, folks, unless a teacher tells you we got to go to the library today and you have to pick out a book, they don't do it. They don't just go to the library on their own and go, yeah, they go read a book. They don't do it. So there is an argument to be made that a lot of these books that we're, having removed from the high school or having put in a different, can't be shown in the elementary, has to be high school, or, it's not appropriate for high school, it needs to be college. There is an argument to be made that kids aren't reading those books anyway. If you pull them out and look and see how many times they've been checked out, it's zero. So that may in fact be a case that's a valid argument. But if that's the case, if nobody's checking those books out, then why are we spending the money to put something on the shelves that kids aren't going to read anyway?
Right.
Seems like a waste of funds.
Especially if they're deemed inappropriate. And this is not,
Right.
we always let the left dictate the terms of engagement. And all they do
Yeah.
is point out and go, look, they're banning books. You're not
Mhm.
banning books. What you're doing is removing inappropriate materials. You wouldn't put Hustler magazine in a library,
Right.
but just because it's in a cartoon form, it doesn't make it any less offensive.
Right.
We're talking about giving material to underage kids and even little kids that's inappropriate.
Yeah.
And I always say this: the buried lead in this whole discussion is that why does anybody want to talk about sex with little kids? What's wrong with you? If that's what you want to do, I'm sorry. There's an inherent problem with that. Nobody should
Yes.
we
Red
shouldn't even
flags.
be having this discussion. We shouldn't.
Yeah.
Not at all. I mean, you're talking about kids in their formative years, and it's just one more attempt by the left to replace parents in this discussion. That's what they want to do. They want to make sure that the kids are our kids. No, they're not. It's my kid. It's not your kid. It's my kid. And I'm going to stay right on top of everybody, and everybody should. And sometimes it's impossible for people to do that. So you have groups like Moms for Liberty trying to remove this information from school libraries. Now, public libraries are a different discussion. That's a different
Right.
discussion because it's not connected
Yep. Agreed.
directly to the school. But if you're talking
Mhm.
about elementary school and middle school and these books discuss these
Yep.
issues, look, it shouldn't be there, period. If you want to have a different discussion about high school, we can have that. All right, we can have that. And if you want to have a different discussions about public libraries, we can have that discussion too. But when you're talking about middle school and elementary school, when you see some of these books, they're pornographic. And just because it's in cartoon form doesn't make it any less offensive or inappropriate.
Well, so the reason why I brought this up is because I wanted to share with you something that was sent to me. Now, some of the high schools and my school, several of my schools did it, not every one of them, but several of my schools did it. They would have a student-led, morning announcement type program where the kids would announce, events coming up, games, things like that students would be interested in getting involved in. So a parent actually of one of the students, he filmed the morning announcements, and so that's what I want to share with you because the liberals are so adamant to try and get their message out that they're willing to use kids to make their point. So I'm going to share with you now what I'm talking about. This was a morning news program, if you will, with a student who was leading it. And let's see if I can
Of
get
Day
it.
Low are presenting a fact a day about banned books. Today's fact is the most challenged book of 2022. It's genderqueer for its LGBTQIA plus content and claimed to be sexually explicit. To recognize
right. So did you hear that? Were you
Oh
able to
yeah,
hear
oh
that,
yeah.
John?
Slightly
Okay.
biased.
Yeah. So I've looked at this book and I'm just going to describe to you. I'm not going to put it up because if I'm just going to be honest, if I put up the pictures that are in this book, Facebook would ban me. I would be in trouble.
No doubt.
I would be in trouble. YouTube would probably kick me off. I'd be in trouble for that. So I'm just going to describe to you. As John said, just because it is a cartoon picture and not, actual pictures of two individuals does not make it any less inappropriate. In one section of the book, you have photographs of two males. One of them is actually, I think it must be a female that wants to be a male. I'm not really even sure because the person is wearing a device that attaches to your
Right.
body to make you appear like you have an appendage that you don't normally naturally have. And the other individual is on their knees in front of this standing individual performing fellatio. Now, if you don't know what that word means,
Look it
look it
up.
up because I'm gonna leave it there. I think that's a good way to describe this, and that's in the book. And there's nothing left to the imagination. It illustrates exactly that act. It illustrates this student performing fellatio. And that's a problem to me. I don't think that's appropriate, John. I mean, I believe that fits the definition of pornography, as I understand it. Anything that, in fact, Florida passed a law, and I love it. It said if there is something that is not that you cannot present before the school board because it is, offensive or whatever, then it can't be in the school.
Yeah. Every
So
time you
I'm for
see a
that.
video of parents addressing a school board and they read from this material that we're speaking of, the school board gets so flummoxed. You could see it. They're so uncomfortable with it, and they say, "Please stop reading that. Please stop reading that." Well, yeah. I mean, this is
Mhm.
information that you're giving to our children, and it's just look. It's not. It's not. First of all, it's inappropriate. Second of all, what are we taking away time from to do all of this stuff? To introduce
Yeah.
these subjects, to get into all the CRT and all of that stuff that they're throwing at our students. And then you go back and look at test scores. I mean, test scores for things that you really need to know going forward to be as
Really matter.
successful in this society. We're not producing young people who have a chance at success because they're bogged down with all this other nonsense. And that's what it is. It's nonsense. I mean, I know it's propaganda, but it's stuff that you don't need to know going forward. And if you have questions like that, guess what? That's what your parents are for. That's what your family is for. That's what your pastor is for. And that's what some guidance counselors are for. There are some guidance counselors who do a phenomenal job when it comes to things like this.
Right.
And it's
Agreed.
definitely an issue that has to be handled. Yeah, I mean, I taught in a private school, all boys. All right. So there were guys that had issues and they went to the counselors and the kids were fine with it. I mean, people think that there's bullying and look, I'm here to tell you that actually in an all boys school, there's less bullying than in a co-ed school. When you can look at the studies, it's far
Right.
less because they all kind of take care of each other and look out for each other. But the
Yep.
guidance department is key here, and it's how they handle it. Some people are excellent, but there are other people obviously that have an agenda, and those are the people that we have to worry about, and they have to be
Yep.
identified too. We're not looking to drag people out of their jobs, but you really have to be cautious and careful when you're approaching this type of situation that are look, they're emotional situations, they're difficult situations, and you want professionals in place that do the right thing. And by the right thing, I'm saying what's best for the child. What's best for the child is not telling them to keep secrets from their parents.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting that this young man is using all the correct, terminology,
Yeah. Oh yeah,
LGBTQ,
that's all written
whatever
out
it
for
was.
them.
I don't
Yeah.
even remember. So it's written out for them by the media specialist, who is, in our day was called the librarian, but now they're media specialists because they do things like this with media. They do like the little TVs and videos and things like that. Um, and that's where I have a problem. And folks, this is a school in South Carolina, by the way. This is not a school in California. This is a school in South Carolina. So please don't convince yourself that that's a problem in a blue state. That's not a problem in a red. No, it's a problem here. We have that here as well. So we have serious issues to deal with. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about some positive things that have happened in our state because in as much as we've had, as I noted, this is a negative thing. Well, hold on one second. Let me jump onto this real quickly. Let me share this with you because I think this is also an important thing to note. This is kind of going back really quickly to our discussion earlier of our state legislatures and their votes, because in addition to doing votes on the Constitution, there was also a vote that took place that talked about personhood.
Yeah.
So
She,
that's a pro-life
oh yeah.
position. So if you believe that
And
you
before you
know
get
a child is
before you get to
a
that, I wanted to
person.
say
Yeah,
one more
go ahead.
thing about that, what we just discussed.
Sure.
They often point, they being the left, point to people who
Yeah.
really want to remove these books, etc. They point to everybody and say, well, you're a, whatever you want to call it, a homophobe, transphobe, whatever you are. I would be against these books if it was heterosexual sex. It's just inappropriate. If you were just
Yes.
discussing what we
Yes.
were discussing and you had a woman and a man, that was it. I would be against that as well. It's inappropriate to
Absolutely.
discuss, period. If you want to get into biology class and talk about procreation, that's a different story. All right. We all know the
Absolutely.
mechanics of it, and that's important, and you have to discuss that and you have to teach it, but not from a personal standpoint. All right. That's a
Right.
science standpoint. All right. So I'll scream science, two
Yes.
genders, science. Right. But I would be
Exactly.
against it no matter what. Period. It's inappropriate for children.
Which
That's it.
real quickly, while we're on that subject before we jump over, they just had a vote in the House kind of along the same lines. And I'm very disappointed in Nancy Mace because there was 18 Republicans that voted to stop it. They put forward Chip Roy from Texas put forward a bill that said we're not going to allow the Department of Defense to fund drag queen dances and gay pride events on military installations. Well, it failed. The vote
Right.
failed. And one of the 18 Republicans who voted against that was Nancy Mace. So, Nancy Mace, man, you never know what you're going to get from
Right.
her. I mean, she voted to remove Kevin McCarthy, which we're going to talk about at the end. So we'll get to that. But, I just think, gosh, I mean, and I remember one of the chairman of the Armed Services Committee said, "Oh, no, well, that's not happening. We're not going to allow that to happen." So I hope not. I don't want tax dollars funding that
Now, I would,
nonsense.
I really want to see that bill because Nancy Mace said that there was no money that was going directly to these programs. It was just part of the bill was just to allow it. So
Oh,
I'd
okay.
really have to see it. But
Yeah.
not
Well, then
yeah,
I agree with
right,
you. I
and
just
not
I just
not
saw that vote,
the
but
not to defend Congresswoman Mace, but
right.
her district might be one of the. It's probably the purplest district. I mean, it's not a blue district, but it's
Yeah.
not a red district either.
It's close.
Right. And yeah,
It's
and
close.
she's a centrist. And I prefer that term
Yeah.
too, because I don't like moderate, because moderate means that you don't take a stance on anything. In
Yeah.
moderation
Yeah.
means you're not going either way. She's a centrist. Like she votes that way. I get it. But to me, that's a whole different discussion too. I don't want my tax dollars going to it, but I don't really want my tax dollars going to much. But if you're talking adults here and adults want to do those things, have drag shows, and it's adults, hey, look, you're adults. You can do what you want, as long as it's not on my dime. But when you're talking about drag shows and kids, well, that's a whole nother discussion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So let's take a look here. As I mentioned before, we looked at the constitutional records or scorecards of our state legislators, and they were abysmal. Luke Rankin was at 18 out of 100. So that's a huge failing grade. But here he is on personhood. So this is a pro-life vote. This was the scorecard that he received here was 15, ladies and gentlemen. He got a
Well, he's
15.
consistent.
That means 85% of the time he votes to kill. He's about killing, not about saving the life of. So again, this is District 33. If you think Luke Rankin is the guy that represents your values, then I don't know that he represents any of the values of the people that I know in Horry County,
Right. And again, it's,
or in
when you
South
look at
Carolina.
these scorecards, people say, well, it's skewed, whatever. If you're up in 60, 70, okay, I get it. Sometimes, again, there are going to be bills where there are riders attached where you end up voting for something and there's something contained in the bill that was added onto it that you had to weigh, okay, do I vote for this or do I not vote for this? So that would maybe bring you up to 60 or so. I get that. But
Yeah,
15, I mean,
yeah,
we're not talking about much room for error there. He is who he is. I mean,
no.
13, 17 on one and 15 on another. Okay, he's not a conservative.
Hmm.
Case closed.
Yeah, not a conservative, not even a
No,
Republican,
no.
not even a Republican. I mean, he's scoring consistently among the Democratic Party's scores.
And
So
lower than
that,
a lot
in
of
my
them.
mind, Or lower than a lot of them. Yeah, he's an actual Democrat. So, and that goes back to, again, we mentioned Gil Gatch was
Zero, right?
ran as a Republican and scored zero. He scored only one other Democrat had a zero score. Even Clyburn, who was related to James
Right.
Clyburn, even he had, I think, 19 or 20, something like that. So, folks, we have major problems here in the state, and it's very important that you be involved. Now, yesterday I took to my neighborhood, Facebook page, whatever, and we're at about 700, going forward with homes. They're building some multifamily townhouses now, so it's going to, the population is going to go up here in the neighborhood. And I noted that last time in the primary, only 44 households actually voted. Now, there may have been two people, maybe the wife and the husband voted, so that could be 88 people. But again, out of 650 homes at that time, 44 households voted. That's dismal. So I put a post up on our page, said, hey, just if you're new to South Carolina and you want to get involved, a couple things you need to know. One, we are an open party system, so you don't register as a Republican or Democrat or whatever. You vote in the primary that you choose at the time of the primary. To that end, you need to register 30 days prior to the election. The first election that we will be voting in, because we're not in a municipality, so we don't vote in any of the city council races or mayors or anything like that, will be the Democratic presidential primary, which is February 3rd on a Saturday. So that means you need to be, registered to vote by January 3rd, rather. And then the second one is the Republican primary, which is also on a Saturday, February 24th. And so you need to vote for that. So I put that up, and, I kind of hoped I'd get a lot of clicks and likes and thank you and all that kind of, like 2 people.
Right.
And I thought, and I put something up the other day about, does anybody know how many houses we have? And it was like, I'm telling you, I got so many comments. And I thought, and then you wonder why our country is going down the toilet,
Right.
because you people won't pull your heads out of your own rear ends to pay attention and get involved in the process.
Right. And I partially blame the media, because they do not, like, when's the deadline? You have to register by tomorrow to vote in this upcoming election. I think it's tomorrow, right?
Correct.
Watch the news, see if it's on there. They should be repeating that all the time.
Yep.
It should be on every news show, and they should do candidate forums, and they're just not interested. When I watched the lead story on the local news this morning, it was about an art show at Coastal Carolina University. Now, that's great. I think it's great. But look, in the grand scheme of things, it shouldn't be the lead story. The lead story should be voter registration. It should be civic activity. It should be politics. It should be, and yet it's fluff after fluff after fluff. And then they throw in a couple of national things about how bad Trump is. And then they go back to the fluff and the weather and the traffic.
Yeah.
And I get that. But, the media used to be so much more responsive than it is now, so much more responsible in promoting this whole idea of civic responsibility. And now they're just not interested, because that's what they're told to do.
Yeah. To that end, I want to discuss something really quickly. Folks, one of the reasons why we continue to have these terrible legislatures get elected and reelected is because they figured out the math in Horry County. 34% of our population votes Democrat. 34%. That's a solid voting bloc. 66% vote Republican or Independent. So what that means is, let's take Luke Rankin as an example. Let's use simple math. Let's say there's 10,000 registered voters in his district. There's more than that. We're just going to use 10,000 as a simple math equation. Okay, 3,400 of those people are Democrats. And I think John and I can both agree that Democrats get out and they vote. They are like lemons. You tell them go do this, and they just go. They don't ask questions. They just go do it. So they're told, hey, go vote. We need you to vote. And you got to vote for Luke Rankin in the Republican primary, because there's no Democrat that's going to beat him. And by the way, he actually is a Democrat. So they're going to go vote for Luke. All right. So that means if Luke is running against one other person, then he's guaranteed the 3,400, but he's going to have to fight for some of those votes out of the 6,600 that remains if he plans on winning, because, another Republican, say a John Gallman, can easily come in and get 4,000. Guess what? He wins. So here's what Rankin's team does. They're little people. He's got the Quins backing him, I believe it is. And then you got Walter Wetzel and you got other folks. They go out and they get other candidates, Donald Smith and others, to get in this race and run against him. So now you have Luke Rankin, who's going to get that 3,400 votes. And now you have 3 other candidates running who are going to vie for those 6,600 votes. Now, let's say that they all equally get, 1,000 or 2,000 votes each. So if the highest they can get is 2,000, because there's two other people running against them that are drawing off of that number, what does that give Luke?
Right. And because he's
It either gives him the
right, because he's
win.
got the Democrats coming over to vote. Right.
It either gives him the win or it puts him in a runoff, which is what happened last time. He gets in the runoff. Now, he was losing until he got in the runoff. Well, here's the problem. And John and I can tell you this is how it is. Folks, you can't hardly get them out to vote at a primary. You really can't get them to go out and vote again in a
Right.
runoff.
When it's
I
a
mean,
month
it
later or
goes,
hardly. Right.
well, it's usually
2
2
weeks,
weeks
right.
later. But I mean, the turnout for a primary is low. The turnout for a runoff is almost tumbleweed. If it's 3% for a primary, it's probably 0.5% for a runoff. Okay, so he knows that. He knows that. But guess what? Guess who's going to show up? Guess who's always going to vote because they're
Yeah,
good little
it's the
lemmings.
Democrats always.
The
And that
3,400
and
Democrats. They're going to
that's
show
why we
up.
have to get rid of the open primary. I mean, it's simple
Yep.
as that. I mean,
Yep.
if people can't see that, and I've gotten into discussions with people about this, and they say, "No, it's not fair to independents." And hey, look, I'm sorry. If you don't want to register with one of the parties, don't register with one of the parties. But if the primary is a party election. I mean, that's why it was.
Yep.
That's why they instituted it back as part of the progressive era reforms, because party bosses used to pick the people who would be in the general election. Then they opened it up to the people, let them pick their own representatives of the party in the primary election. Primary as in first election, right? That's not,
Right.
I feel like I'm teaching again. That's why they have it. And to have an open primary is, I mean, it's counterproductive. It's just counterproductive for the
Yeah.
party. And like you said, invariably, there's a lot of Democrats will come and vote in the Republican primary, and then they get their person who's the squishy Republican in the general, and then all the Republicans hold their nose and vote for that person in the general election because they're better than the Democrat. Maybe.
Yeah.
If you look at those rankings, it really doesn't much matter, does it?
Yeah, I'm going to start calling them Republicans. Republicans. That's what they are. They're
No,
Republicans.
trans
Not
Republicans.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
Republicans. Because that's what Luke Rankin is. I mean, he was a Democrat all the way up until I think 2004, from like early 90s to 2004. And then they redrew the districts. He knew he couldn't win as a Democrat
And they
because
switch
there's too
over,
many
right?
Republicans. So he said, and he actually said this before the Horry County Democrat Party. Hey guys, I mean, I love you and I don't want to leave the party, but I can't win if I run as a Democrat. So I'm going to run as a Republican. But don't worry, I'm going to vote exactly the same. And that's what he's done. And he's gotten away with it for 20-something years.
And that's why we have
For
that's
20
what,
years. That's
and he's not
ridiculous.
the only one, obviously. By looking at that
Right.
scorecard, all you have to do is take a look,
Yeah.
and you know that that's common around the state. And the only way you end that, really, if you want to get the people involved, if we can get the people involved, is to get rid of the open primary. And I think if you got rid of the open primary, something tells me that people would get more involved because they know they're in an impossible spot. If you're a conservative, and you just throw your hands up sometimes because you can't win because all the Democrats are coming over to vote in the Republican primary.
Well, I mean that definitely would have helped some, but
Yeah,
here's the
it's
problem with
that
that.
15%
Okay.
that you need. Even if the Democrats don't get
But
out and vote, they're not going to vote 100%. Nobody does, but it's that 10 to 15% in the middle that swings it, and it's the Democrat
yeah,
vote.
and that, but I still say there's still a fly in the ointment in that. And here it is. Okay. The Democrats are still going to fully know that a Republican cannot win in, say, Horry County. So they're not going to vote in the Democratic primary.
Right.
They're going to register as a Republican. They're going to vote in the Republican primary. So they're
Right.
still going to vote in the Republican primary. That isn't going to change. And then in the general election, because first of all, folks, the presidential primary is separate from the other primaries. So they can go in and register as a Democrat, vote in the presidential primary, and vote for Joe Biden.
Right.
Okay. And then in the state house or the state senate race, they can go in and vote as a Republican. They
Right.
can do that. All right. So that's a problem because you can change within 30 days. And if the presidential primary is like February
Well,
and then our state house primary is June, is there 30 days in between that,
yeah.
John?
Well,
There absolutely
that's
is.
another thing that needs to be crafted in the legislation is that you can't switch like that. Not
Right.
that much. There should be some sort of
I would
some
agree.
sort of legislation that pretty much sticks you per election cycle. So it'll be 2 years. If you want to change it every 2 years, if you want to go in and change, and look, there are just a lot of people who are Democrats who would never register as Republican, no matter how much it helped them. They
Yeah.
just won't do it.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a better way to go forward. I think it would
Yeah.
alleviate some of the issues in Columbia anyway.
Yeah. That alleviates some of the issues, but you know what would fix it 100%? We wouldn't even have to worry about having the open or closed primaries. You know what would fix it 100%? If those 6,600 people would
Yeah,
actually
get out
vote.
and get involved.
If they would
Yeah,
go out and
just get
vote
involved.
in the primary and show up and vote in the runoffs, if you would actually show up, and that's all you got to do. You don't have to give money. You ain't got to give blood. Just a little bit of your time. Show up and vote, and we could change this country. We could start out by changing our local politics, and then our state, and then our national. Because again, I'm going to say this again and again and again. If you look at who is in the national, whether it be the U.S. Congress or the State House or even in the White House to some degree, you're going to see that most of those folks got their start in the
Local.
local
Yeah.
politics first. They started off in the local politics, they made their way up, and that's how they got into the federal positions they got into. So if we can make certain at the local level, Brett Bart said it best, all politics are local. If we could get it started at the local level, we can make a change. But it requires you to actually take an active participatory role in the process. Just vote. Just for the love of all that's holy, vote. But yeah, all right. So, kind of, putting that to the side for just a minute, we're going to spend the last, 15 minutes or so talking about. It's important because even though it's not necessarily a state's issue, what happens at the national level certainly affects us at the state level, and not for nothing. We had a historic change in the Speaker of the House. Never in history, folks, have we had a speaker removed, fired, whatever you want to call it. We've never had that happen before. It's never happened. I think one other time it was like,
About 100 years
it
ago.
came
Yeah.
up for a vote. Didn't
Didn't
go
go anywhere.
anywhere. But yeah, so McCarthy is the first Speaker of the House ever to be fired, if you will, from that position. So that's historic. And it's even more historic because two of the eight, no, not eight. Well, one of the 8 Republicans who voted to remove him was Nancy Mace. And of course, Matt Gaetz was leading the charge with that. And then one of the Democrats that voted to remove him was, of course, James Clyburn. So we have 2 of our congressmen here in South Carolina who voted to remove him. Now, I've said all along, I like Matt Gaetz. I never liked Kevin McCarthy. I never thought he's not a conservative. Um, and he just, as far as I'm concerned, he was supposed to do all these things. He was supposed to start impeachments of not necessarily Biden, although that would be good, but some of these other folks. We talk about Christopher
Yeah.
Ray,
Mayorkas, Garland. Yeah.
Mayorkas. Yeah, they should have gotten their paper saying, "Hey, we're going to see you in Congress, and you're getting out of here." That should have happened already. But now there was some new information that I had not heard yet because, I'm not against removing him, but I actually wanted to have more information. What specifically was it that Matt was so upset about that he said, "That's it, I'm done"? Because I don't think this is the first time Kevin's lied, but or whatever. So, John, share
Yeah, I
with
mean,
everybody
there
what
were a
you
lot. Obviously,
understood.
there were a lot of promises made that weren't kept. I think we all know that. I mean, releasing the January 6 tapes, having a true January 6 committee, not like the farcical one that took
Right.
place last time. And there were numerous other. I'm not even going to list them. But what
Right.
I heard Nancy Mace saying yesterday was that now, and she's far from a conservative, which I think made this
Right.
even more. Yeah,
Centrist.
it made this even more effective because it's not. They can't point to it and say, "Oh, these are all these ultra MAGA right wingers and everything." Nancy Mace is far from
Yep.
that.
Not.
But she stood up, and I give her a lot of credit. And she said, "I was tired of being lied to." She goes, "When we had that last bill to extend the spending, the $1.5 trillion spending bill," she goes, "I voted for it because Kevin McCarthy promised me that he would get my bill to the floor, which included the balanced budget amendment. It was a balanced budget bill that they had to bring it to the floor." And he said,
Praise the Lord for that.
"Yeah, absolutely. You vote for the bill, we'll take care of it." He promised Matt Gaetz the same thing, that they wanted to get that bill to the floor right away. And he said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And then he promised other people that, "Oh, don't worry, we're not going to do that." So he lied right to her face. And she said that was the last time as speaker that he was going to lie to my face. And what she said, which she goes, in South Carolina, when a man looks you in the eye and shakes your hand, if he doesn't keep his word, well, bless his heart. And we all know what that means, right? And so she had enough. And she said, that's it. I'm
Yeah.
not going to be lied to anymore by some. And she's been, look, like I said, she's not a conservative, at least not when it comes to social issues. When it comes to
Right.
fiscal issues, she's a hawk. I mean, she's very
Yeah.
strong on fiscal issues, and she's been
We need
right.
hawks. Oh my
And
God, on the
she's, oh,
fiscal
look,
issue.
she's been as strong on Biden as anybody I've seen. I mean, she went over to Treasury and got all the reports, the suspicious activity reports, of which there are, I think, 150. If you get
Oh, it's
if
a
you get
ton,
one,
yeah.
the bank comes right after you. 150
Exactly.
reports. She said that the money that's gotten to the Bidens is over $50 million, not 20, over 50 million. So she's been pretty strong on that, but she just said she was tired of being lied to, and that's why she jumped on it. Now, of course, the Republicans are like, well, you know what? We have to change this rule, the motion to vacate rule, because it allows one person to introduce that resolution. That's what the Democrats do. When they can't have their way, they change the rules.
Yes.
So now
Yes.
that's another tell on the uniparty. They're doing this. They want to do the
Yep.
same. Republicans want to do this. The establishment wants to do the same thing that the Democrats do. If you don't like the way the rules go, you don't like the way it goes, change the rules. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
McCarthy's gone. Me personally, I'm happy he's gone. He didn't do it. He didn't do
Yep.
enough. It's one of the do nothing
Yep.
Congresses that we've had. I mean, you're here 8 months plus as the speaker. You haven't done hardly
Yep.
anything. The fact that they refuse to do these single issue bills, which I am a big fan of, tying the Ukraine
As am I. Yeah.
to military spending, long-headed. I'm against these riders in general. I always have been. And that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that has continually blown up our budget, all this pork barrel spending. They're daring you to vote against the bill because they throw all this extra stuff in there. That single issue stuff is perfect. And also the other thing, in committee, they had a lot of these single issue bills ready to go in July. McCarthy didn't bring them
Mm-hmm.
to the floor, and they recessed for
Right.
6
And then
weeks.
went recess.
Right.
Yeah.
And now you
Yeah.
come back,
Which they should have
right? You
stayed.
come back the second week of September, and now you're up against the wall because it's the end of the fiscal year. So you got to do something by September 30th. Oh my God, we're going to close the federal government. So what do? They pass another continuing resolution. They haven't passed a budget in like 18 years, a real budget, which is
Exactly.
unconstitutional
Yeah.
in and of itself, but nobody calls them on it. Right.
Amen.
Right. So they're finally, Gates is saying, look, we need to do these single issue bills. He gets them through committee. They present them. The speaker doesn't get them to the floor. They come back out and now they're like, oh my God, we're running out of time. And they make them vote on something that, you're going to basically force Republicans to say they didn't want to be responsible for closing the government when they go back to their constituents. And they do this every year. Well, it's about time somebody called somebody on it. And Matt Gaetz called McCarthy on it. At least he had some people stand up. And one of the people that stood up was Matt Rosendale from Montana. And his quote yesterday, when you have more Democrats voting for the debt ceiling package than you do Republicans, that's a major problem.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and I'll say this. I was very disappointed with Ben Shapiro, Mark Lewin, Dan Bongino, and even to some degree Glenn Beck, because they all have attacked Matt
Yeah.
Gaetz. Ben especially. I mean, he's terrible. Isn't he? What is he doing? This is stupid. I'm like, really, guys? Really? Maybe you call him up and ask him, because their thing is, they're parroting Kevin McCarthy's line of he's just doing this because he wants to get, TV presence, whatever. And I never bought that. I said, no, he could get that by doing other things. And now that I've heard this, I mean, I'm 100% behind him now, because that's right. Nancy and he are right. If you're going to continue to lie to my face and then and tell somebody else the exact opposite of what you just promised me, then you should be gone. That's not a leader.
Right. And McCarthy, he made the deal. That's how he became speaker in the first place.
Right.
Remember, it took 15 votes, and he finally he gave them all that they wanted, pretty much. And then he never followed through on any of it. And Gates said he was going to do it, and he did it. And I give him a lot of credit. And one more thing I'll give Matt Gaetz credit for. He takes no money from lobbyists and PACs, not a dime. He's the only person in Congress that doesn't take money from PACs and lobbyists. He won't even meet with lobbyists. He just won't do it because he thinks it's unfair to his constituents. And to see the Republicans and the Democrats attack him for putting out texts to fundraise to say, hey, look, I need your help here, folks, because, I'll take the $10, $20, $30, $40, but he said, I don't want to be lectured by people. We just recessed for a week, which I think is ridiculous. They should have stayed right there after they got rid of McCarthy and just filled the spot and kept going. They didn't do that. But they're sending people home for a week who are going to go meet with lobbyists and PACs fundraisers for that week, right? That's what they're going to do.
Right.
And they're going to lecture Gates on trying to raise money from his constituents. Sorry, it's not how it works.
Yeah, I saw the criticism of him doing that, and I agree with you. I said, look, well, how is that different from all the other crap you guys send me? I mean, at least he is taking a principled stance. He's not taking money from these PACs, and that takes cojones. Because if I think this is his 8th term, so this is
His
no
fourth term,
fourth
right?
term, 8 years, 4th term. Yeah. So if he's been able to win and be reelected that many times without taking PAC money, man, that's impressive. That means his constituents are happy with him. They believe he's representing them. And so, Kevin McCarthy, you can say all you want. I don't care. At the end of the day, he's doing what is necessary and what is needed. So that's a great thing. The other thing I'll say is I was listening to Ted Cruz, and he was talking about the fact that they have, a need to get rid of their leader as well, because Mitch McConnell's old and he doesn't know what day it is either. And so he had made the point that he didn't actually, he said, let's postpone the election, because they usually do it right the week after the general election. They do it. He said, let's postpone that because we want to make sure that all of our senators are here. And that was when the possibility of having the senator from Georgia might have been another Republican. And so he was defeated, but he got 16 votes in agreement with him. And then I think it was the guy, senator from Florida, Scott,
Right.
actually ran for the
Rick
position,
Scott,
and he
right.
got 10
Right.
votes. So that's never happened before. That's never happened before. They automatically give him. And he said that when Mitch McConnell stood up and spoke, that what he said was, hey, listen, I gave you 25 million. I gave you 30 million. I gave you 20 million. He didn't get up and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do as your leader. This is how I'm going to run the Senate. He just stood up and told everybody, let me remind you of how much money I gave to your
Yep.
campaign. And then, of course, they voted for him. And I thought that is not how our government should function, and yet it is. So we need to make a change, and if we can't change the way it functions, then we have to change the participants in the way
Well,
it functions.
yeah.
And so that's why I
And
agree with you. Kevin's needed to
works
go.
the same way at the speaker level. Works the same exact way. They have a certain amount of money that they have in their congressional PAC, and the speaker has it, and he gets to hand out the money to campaigns for people who back him. And it's very difficult to raise money, especially in this day and age, because people don't have extra money laying around. They just don't. Economy's horrible. So they dole out the money and they expect support in return. And you're going to get that money from these PACs through the speaker. And he picks and chooses just like the majority leader or the minority leader does. And that's not the way it should be set up. It should be based on the constituents and their contributions. The speaker and
Right.
the majority leader or minority leader should not be writing checks to people's campaigns and expect support in return.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it'll be interesting. Now let's talk a little quickly. We got a couple minutes left. The names that were mentioned for possible replacements were Jim Jordan, who I would absolutely support.
Yeah,
I
he threw
liked
his
Jim
hat
Jordan
in,
last
right?
time, but and then just folks were saying oh my God, Donald Trump. And I said, you know what? Yeah, I kind of would enjoy that. I think I would really enjoy seeing Donald Trump
It,
preside over the House.
I would only
And then
want
somebody
right.
said,
I would
Trump.
only want to see
Yeah.
it if he does it through the State of the Union address, because I would pay money to see him sitting behind Biden and next to Harris. That would be classic theater. Classic theater. And
Oh,
you know what, too?
I'd love it.
I don't mean to be, whether you like Trump or not, there are a few people who are better negotiators than him. He's one of the.
Yeah,
I
I'd
think
love to
he's
see
one
him
of the
go.
few
I'm not
people who
kidding.
can get anybody to the table and get them to work out deals. I mean, he's the art of the deal guy, right? Do I think it's going to happen? No, I don't think it's going to happen. But it would be great theater. As for Jordan, he would certainly be a step up from McCarthy. I think Scalise would be more of the same. I think if those two split the vote and they can't get to the majority needed, I think that the other choice probably be Byron Donalds of Florida, whose name was
I
he was
like fine. He was thrown in
he
there
was
last
pumped up
time.
a few
Yeah.
times. He had a couple of go rounds during the last attempt to get a speaker.
Yeah.
I think he would be like I don't want to say a compromise candidate, because I don't really like that term. It
Yeah.
has a negative connotation. But if they can't agree
Yeah.
between Jordan and Scalise, I think Donalds could be the type of guy that could split the difference, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I definitely, if we get Scalise, it's more of Kevin
Yep,
McCarthy.
he's the
I don't want
majority
that. I'd
leader,
rather
right?
have Jim Jordan. Yeah, absolutely. I'd rather have Jordan. But one more thing I'd say about the Trump as a possible selection. I had and the guys from Canada, I don't even know why he's commenting, but anyway, he was commenting. He said, "Oh, he can't do it. How is he going to do that and also deal with his trial and also campaign?" And I said, "Well, let me say this to you." And I said, "Look, and first of all, let me put this out as a caveat. I'm a Ron DeSantis person." I said, "But even I can read the tea leaves. Short of some catastrophic event happening, Donald Trump's got this nomination locked up. It is what it is. It's not over yet, so things could change. I will certainly admit that, and that's the case. But I said, I don't think him being the speaker would in any way prohibit him from campaigning. I said, heck, Biden was in the basement the
Right.
entire time, and he still managed to win. So you would have Donald Trump fully capable of campaigning. Certainly on the weekends he could campaign, and in the evenings he could campaign. And they said, well, he just have to be in court. Well, he doesn't have to be in court all the time. Sometimes you don't have to be in the courtroom. You don't have to be there. There are certain cases where you have to be present. But again, that doesn't mean that he couldn't do that. And I said, I would actually enjoy it. I think
It would
the art of the
great
deal.
theater.
Yeah, oh my God, I would. And so I was even thinking, if something happens and God, we got to have a Republican president, but we absolutely need to increase our Republican majority in the House, and we need to retake the Senate. And if we do that, and let's just say something happens, some shenanigans take place, whatever. I don't, know. Let's say that they lock Trump up. I'm just throwing it out there, and somehow our country doesn't get torn apart by that. And let's say Ron DeSantis wins and becomes president. One, I fully expect that he would, basically say, no, this is all null and void. He would pardon Trump. I'm sure of that. So if he did that, what I'd want him to do is I would definitely want Trump to be the speaker.
Right.
I would absolutely want Trump to be the Speaker of the House then, because I think that would just be that not just theater. That would just be, oh my God, I'd be eating popcorn. I would actually watch C-SPAN
Yeah, I think everybody would.
on the regular. It would be great. So, but anyway, so you and I both agree that's probably not going to happen. But folks, please, pay attention, know what's going on. That's going to do it for us today. John, any last
No,
parting
hey,
comments?
just get involved if you haven't registered to vote in the upcoming November elections. You have till tomorrow, I believe, to do it. So get involved, especially for you people who have just relocated here and are sitting back and saying, "Boy, it's nice to be in a red state." Well, you know what? You better get involved because it won't be a red state for much longer if you don't.
Absolutely. Please do get involved and vote. Show up to vote. That's so important. Well, that's going to do it for today, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, God bless, Godspeed, and we'll see you next time.